Welcome to this relaxing journey through the world of Fallout. Let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from tonight, and if you enjoy the videos, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one. The Commonwealth, the main setting of Fallout 4, is one of the most detailed and atmospheric worlds ever created for a Fallout game. Set in the ruins of Massachusetts, it takes the familiar retro-futuristic apocalypse that defines the series and overlays it with the distinct history, culture, and geography of New England. At the heart of this world is Boston, a city filled with recognizable landmarks that have been reimagined as decayed husks of their former selves. Players walking through the Commonwealth encounter places like Fenway Park, repurposed into the bustling hub known as Diamond City, or the Massachusetts State House, now a ruin filled with danger. The blending of real-world locations with Fallout's unique retrofuturism gives the Commonwealth a sense of authenticity that resonates with players, grounding the game in places that feel simultaneously familiar and alien. One of the most striking aspects of the Commonwealth is the way the pre-war identity of Boston is mirrored through its survivors. Just as Boston in real life is associated with revolutionary fervor and innovation, the Commonwealth is home to factions that carry those same echoes in a post-nuclear form. The Minutemen, for example, draw their inspiration directly from the militias of the American Revolution. Their goal is to protect settlements across the Commonwealth from raiders and mutants, and their name itself is a callback to the historic Minutemen who fought against British rule. In Fallout 4, this historical connection is not subtle but intentional, reinforcing the game's theme that history repeats itself even after the world has ended. The Minutemen reflect both the ideals of community defense and the struggles of decentralized leadership in a shattered society. Another major faction is the Railroad, who operate in secrecy throughout the Commonwealth. Their focus is on rescuing and protecting synths, the artificial humans created by the Institute. This storyline connects directly to debates about freedom, identity, and humanity. The Railroad sees synths as sentient beings deserving of rights and independence, while others view them as tools or even threats. By rooting their base in the catacombs beneath Boston, the Railroad connects their mission symbolically to the real-world Underground Railroad, which helped enslaved people escape to freedom. This thematic layering makes their presence in the Commonwealth one of the most memorable aspects of Fallout 4, and it showcases the series' ability to use allegory to explore heavy moral questions in a fictional setting. The Institute itself is perhaps the most iconic and divisive faction in the Commonwealth. Hidden deep beneath the ruins of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, the Institute is a secretive society of scientists who have survived and thrived underground since the Great War. They are responsible for creating synths, as well as conducting experiments that impact the entire wasteland. For some, the Institute represents the pinnacle of human achievement, preserving knowledge and technology even after nuclear devastation. For others, they embody the dangers of unchecked power and the hubris of believing science alone can rebuild civilization. Their sleek white laboratories contrast sharply with the ruined world above, symbolizing both progress and isolation. The Institute's storyline highlights Fallout's recurring theme of whether humanity should place its trust in technology or in people. The Brotherhood of Steel also plays a major role in the Commonwealth, arriving in full force aboard the massive airship Prydwen. Their presence is a dramatic expansion of the Brotherhood compared to earlier games, showing them not just as a small group of isolationists, but as a military order capable of large-scale operations. Led by Elder Maxon, The Brotherhood in Fallout 4 is far more authoritarian, seeking to dominate the Commonwealth by controlling advanced technology and eliminating perceived threats like the Institute and synths. Their presence is marked by vertibirds flying overhead, patrols on the ground, and the looming shadow of the Prydwen over Boston's skyline. For many players, their arrival is one of the most memorable moments in the game, cementing their role as both protectors and oppressors, depending on one's perspective. Beyond the factions, the Commonwealth is alive with countless settlements, ruins, and hidden stories. Diamond City is perhaps the most central hub, built within the remains of Fenway Park. This settlement is home to traders, journalists, and a wide variety of colorful characters. Piper, the outspoken reporter who runs the newspaper, Public Occurrences, is one of the standout residents, always challenging authority and digging for the truth. The baseball stadium's setting is not just visually unique, but thematically clever, using America's pastime as the foundation for survival in a post-nuclear world. The contrast between a once cheerful sports arena and its repurposing into a fortified city captures Fallout's signature blend of nostalgia and reinvention. Other notable locations include Good Neighbor, a rougher settlement that thrives on freedom and defiance. Governed by Hancock, a ghoul who named himself after the revolutionary figure, Good Neighbor is a haven for those who reject authority and conformity. Its neon lights and underground clubs make it feel like a cross between a dive bar and a refuge, giving it a distinct personality compared to the more orderly Diamond City. This duality between Diamond City's structure and Good Neighbor's chaos reflects the larger themes of the Commonwealth, where survival takes many forms and no single approach guarantees success. Quests throughout the Commonwealth highlight its complexity. One of the most famous involves the USS Constitution, a pre-war ship stranded on top of a building, crewed by eccentric robots who believe they are still serving in the Navy. The ship eventually launches into the air with rocket engines, crashing spectacularly into other buildings before continuing its bizarre mission. This quest captures Fallout's mix of humor and tragedy, as the robot's loyalty to duty becomes both absurd and strangely admirable. Another memorable storyline is the Silver Shroud, where the player dons the costume of a pre-war radio hero to deliver justice across the city. This quest allows players to roleplay in a meta-narrative, blending Fallout's retro culture with its post-apocalyptic reality. The Commonwealth is also filled with vaults, each telling its own grim story. Vault 81 is one of the most unique, as it actually functioned as intended for its residents, unlike the majority of Vault-Tec experiments. This vault contains a secret hidden section where unethical experiments were conducted, and players uncover the tragic results of these tests. Vault 95, in contrast, housed individuals struggling with addiction, only for the vault to secretly supply them with drugs as part of a cruel experiment. These vault stories are microcosms of Fallout's larger themes, revealing how institutions often betray those they claim to protect. Environmental storytelling is everywhere in the Commonwealth. Abandoned homes contain skeletons posed in ways that tell silent stories of the bombs dropping. A skeleton holding a bottle in a bathtub suggests someone who chose to drink as the world ended, while a child's room frozen in time captures the innocence lost in nuclear fire. Metro tunnels filled with ghouls reflect how the city's underground infrastructure became both refuge and death trap. Every corner of the Commonwealth holds these small details, encouraging players to pause and reflect rather than simply rush from quest to quest. Radiation itself plays a huge role in shaping the Commonwealth's landscape. The glowing sea, a highly irradiated area southwest of Boston, is one of the most haunting locations in Fallout 4. Once a region of normal towns and suburbs, it was ground zero for a nuclear blast, leaving behind a barren wasteland where radiation storms, rage, and mutated monsters roam. Venturing into the glowing sea requires preparation, from power armor to rad-resistant supplies, and the atmosphere is deliberately oppressive. The glowing skies, twisted ruins, and eerie silence give the area a unique tone, reinforcing the game's message about the lasting scars of nuclear war. Creatures throughout the Commonwealth also contribute to its atmosphere. Mirrorlurks, resembling mutated crustaceans, lurk near waterways, while terrifying Mirrorlurk queens tower over the player in battles that feel like boss encounters. Deathclaws, the iconic predators of Fallout, stalk ruined quarries and abandoned suburbs, ready to tear apart the unprepared. Radstags, mutated deer, wander the forests, while glowing ones, feral ghouls charged with radiation, emit a chilling green light in dark ruins. Each creature serves not only as a gameplay challenge, but as a reminder of how the natural world was twisted by nuclear fallout. The Commonwealth also excels in layering history within its geography. Landmarks like the Old North Church, Bunker Hill, and the USS Constitution tie directly into Boston's revolutionary past. Fallout 4 reimagines these historic sites as places of conflict, trade, or refuge, reinforcing the theme that history is never fully erased, even in the wasteland. Players walking through Boston feel the echoes of the American Revolution alongside the scars of nuclear war, creating a setting that feels both deeply American and uniquely Fallout. The Commonwealth is more than just a map. It is a living, breathing character in its own right. Its blend of factions, settlements, vaults, landmarks, and hidden details makes it one of the richest settings in the Fallout franchise. Every ruined street and underground bunker tells a story, inviting players to slow down, explore, and imagine the lives that once filled these spaces. In Fallout 4, the Commonwealth is not just a backdrop for adventure, but a reflection of humanity's resilience and flaws, a stage where themes of freedom, technology, and survival are constantly tested. One of the reasons the Commonwealth feels so memorable is how it blends the ordinary with the extraordinary. You can be wandering down a ruined street that looks like it came straight from an old New England neighborhood, with crumbling houses and faded white picket fences, only to suddenly stumble upon a battle between raiders and a Brotherhood patrol, or hear the distant screech of a deathclaw echoing from an abandoned quarry. That constant tension between familiarity and danger makes exploration deeply immersive. It is not just a post-nuclear landscape. It is a world that feels lived in, scarred by history, and layered with detail waiting to be uncovered. The Commonwealth's urban core, centered around downtown Boston, is one of the most dense and vertical spaces in the Fallout series. Unlike the relatively flat wastelands of Fallout 3 or the open deserts of Fallout New Vegas, the Commonwealth features tall ruined skyscrapers, narrow streets, and rooftop pathways. Exploring this part of the map often requires players to climb fire escapes, weave through collapsed highways, and fight enemies perched on rooftops. This vertical design adds a unique flavor to exploration, making Boston feel like a real city that has decayed over time rather than just a wide-open plain with a few scattered ruins. Among the city's standout locations is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's in-game counterpart, the ruins above the Institute's hidden base. These crumbling academic halls remind players of Boston's reputation as a center of learning, a place once filled with students and researchers before the bombs fell. Above ground, raiders and mutants now occupy the broken campus buildings, while deep below lies the Institute's gleaming laboratories. This sharp divide between the surface and the subterranean is one of Fallout 4's most striking contrasts, underscoring the theme that the Commonwealth is a place where two worlds exist side by side: the chaotic, violent wasteland above and the sterile, authoritarian order below. Another famous landmark is the Boston Public Library. In Fallout 4, this once proud institution has been taken over by super mutants, but traces of its history remain in the ruined bookshelves and scattered volumes. A quest allows the player to recover overdue books, a small detail that reflects both Fallout's humor and its respect for cultural memory. Even in a world reduced to rubble, the idea of preserving knowledge still has meaning, and the library's ruined grandeur reminds players of what was lost. This location also highlights Fallout's environmental storytelling, where the setting itself conveys as much narrative as dialogue or quests. Bunker Hill is another location reimagined in the Commonwealth. Known in American history as the site of a pivotal Revolutionary War battle, it becomes in Fallout 4 a bustling trading hub controlled by caravans. Its tall obelisk monument stands as both a historical reminder and a practical landmark visible from afar, guiding players across the city. The quests tied to Bunker Hill involve espionage, betrayal, and factional conflict, all played out beneath the shadow of a monument that once symbolized freedom and sacrifice. By placing such drama in a location tied to America's fight for independence, Fallout 4 reinforces its theme that history is cyclical and the same struggles repeat across time. The Museum of Freedom in Concord provides one of the first major encounters in Fallout 4, introducing players to the Minutemen through Preston Garvey. This building, filled with displays about America's revolutionary history, becomes the backdrop for a desperate battle against raiders. The symbolism is intentional. The rebirth of the Minutemen begins inside a museum dedicated to the original revolutionaries. Fallout has always thrived on mixing satire with sincerity, and this early quest demonstrates that perfectly, as players defend a historic site while helping to forge a new militia for the wasteland. One of the most atmospheric locations is the Old North Church, which serves as the headquarters of the railroad. This church, famous in real life for its role in Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, is reimagined as the hidden sanctuary of those who fight for synth freedom. To reach the railroad's base, players must solve a puzzle involving the Freedom Trail, a red line of bricks that winds through Boston's historic sites. This trail exists in real life, guiding tourists through the city's revolutionary landmarks, but in Fallout 4, it becomes both a literal path to the railroad and a symbolic journey through the themes of liberty and resistance. Beyond Boston's downtown, the Commonwealth sprawls into suburbs, industrial zones, and rural regions, each with their own personality. To the north lies Salem, a town with strong ties to American folklore. In Fallout 4, Salem is home to the Rook family's gun shop and the terrifying Museum of Witchcraft. Inside the museum, players encounter one of the most terrifying fights in the game against a Deathclaw lurking in the shadows. The use of Salem's history of witch trials and superstition adds a chilling edge to this quest, blending real-world folklore with Fallout's mutated horrors. The western edges of the map feature industrial ruins, like the Corvega assembly plant in Lexington. This location is both an early challenge for new players and a reminder of Fallout's satirical critique of consumer culture. Corvega, the pre-war automobile manufacturer, represents the optimism and greed of corporate America, and its abandoned factory is now crawling with raiders. Fighting through its assembly lines and machinery layers the story of how industry once promised progress but ultimately contributed to humanity's downfall. South of Boston lies Quincy, a settlement overrun by the Gunners. This area is notorious for its difficulty, as heavily armed enemies patrol the ruins. In Fallout lore, Quincy is tied to the Minutemen, as it was one of their greatest failures. The town's fall represents the fragmentation of the faction, and exploring it allows players to uncover this tragic backstory. Its design as a ruined, fortified battlefield makes it both a gameplay challenge and a piece of narrative world building. One of the most dangerous and memorable regions of the Commonwealth is the Glowing Sea. Created by a direct nuclear strike during the Great War, this area is a hellish wasteland of craters, storms, and extreme radiation. Unlike the relatively survivable areas closer to Boston, the Glowing Sea requires preparation, either in the form of power armor or radiation-resistant gear. It is home to terrifying creatures, from deathclaws to rad scorpions, and its eerie green glow makes it feel otherworldly. At its center lies the Crater of Adam, a settlement of zealots who worship radiation as a holy force. This cult, the Children of Adam, sees the nuclear devastation not as tragedy but as divine will, adding a layer of religious extremism to Fallout's exploration of post-nuclear society. The Commonwealth is also home to vaults, each of which tells a story about human experimentation and betrayal. Vault 111, where the player begins their journey, was designed for cryogenic suspension. Its true purpose was to test the effects of long-term freezing on human subjects, a cruel twist on Vault-Tech's promises of safety. Vault 95, as mentioned earlier, focused on addiction, while Vault 114 was designed to test social hierarchies by filling it with Boston's upper class under the control of an authoritarian overseer. These vault stories reinforce Fallout's central message that institutions often cloak cruelty in the guise of protection. Radiation storms sweep across the Commonwealth, darkening the skies and filling the air with eerie green lightning. These storms are both a gameplay hazard and an atmospheric flourish, reminding players that the world is still hostile even centuries after the bombs fell. The sound design during these storms is particularly haunting, with distant thunder mixing with the Geiger counter's crackle. It adds a layer of immersion that makes the Commonwealth feel unpredictable and dangerous, even outside of combat encounters. One of the most beloved companions in the Commonwealth is Nick Valentine, a synth detective with the personality of a noir film hero. Found in Vault 114, Nick provides both gameplay support and narrative depth, as his story explores questions of identity and memory. Though he is an artificial being, his experiences and emotions feel authentic, challenging players to reflect on what makes someone human. His questline, which involves hunting down an old mobster, blends Fallout's themes of crime, morality, and the blurred line between human and machine. Piper, mentioned earlier, also stands out as a companion who embodies the spirit of the Commonwealth. Her determination to uncover truth in a world of lies ties directly into the themes of freedom and secrecy explored through the Railroad and the Institute. By traveling with her, players not only gain a helpful ally, but also insight into how ordinary people navigate life in the wasteland. Her banter, optimism, and occasional recklessness make her one of the most memorable voices in the game. Other companions, like Paladin Dance of the Brotherhood and Deacon of the Railroad, further illustrate the diversity of perspectives within the Commonwealth. Dance begins as a loyal soldier, only to face a personal crisis when he discovers his true nature. Deacon, on the other hand, embodies secrecy and disguise, constantly shifting his appearance and testing the player's trust. These characters turn the Commonwealth from just a map into a living story, where the people you meet reflect the larger conflicts shaping the region. The Commonwealth is also defined by its scavenging culture. Players spend countless hours looting ruined buildings, dismantling junk, and turning scraps into tools for survival. Fallout 4's crafting system encourages this behavior, as nearly every object has value when broken down into components. A rusted typewriter becomes a source of screws, a battered lamp provides copper, and a child's toy yields valuable plastic. This mechanic ties into the world's theme of resourcefulness, where survival depends not on finding pristine treasures, but on repurposing the detritus of the old world. Settlement building reinforces this theme even further. Players can transform ruined towns into thriving communities, using scavenged materials to construct houses, farms, and defenses. This system turns the player into a miniature overseer responsible for food, water, and protection. It reflects Fallout's core question of how humanity rebuilds after destruction, offering a glimpse of hope amidst the ruins. The satisfaction of seeing settlers gather in a once empty space reinforces the idea that even in the bleak Commonwealth, life persists. The Commonwealth sound design deserves special mention. From the crackle of the Pip-Boy's radio to the ambient howls of distant creatures, the audio layers immerse players in the wasteland. Diamond City Radio, hosted by the nervous DJ Travis, provides both humor and warmth. Over time, Travis can gain confidence through a quest, transforming from awkward stammering to self-assured charisma. This progression is not just charming but thematically resonant, reflecting the broader idea of growth and resilience in a broken world. Everywhere in the Commonwealth, there are small details that reward curiosity. Skeletons posed mid-action, like one sitting at a desk with a bottle, tell silent stories. Hidden holotapes reveal the fears and hopes of long-dead survivors. Random encounters, from traveling caravans to wandering robots, make the wasteland feel dynamic. These small touches ensure that the Commonwealth is not just a backdrop, but a character in its own right, filled with memory, humor, and tragedy. The Commonwealth stands out in the Fallout series because it balances large-scale faction conflicts with small, intimate stories. Players can decide the fate of entire factions like the Brotherhood or the Institute, but they can also help a farmer defend his crops or reunite a lost child with her family. This layering of epic and personal scales creates a world that feels complete, where every decision matters, whether it shapes the future of the wasteland or simply brings comfort to one person. Ultimately, the Commonwealth embodies Fallout's unique mix of nostalgia, satire, and moral ambiguity. It is a place where historic landmarks become battlefields, where technology promises salvation but delivers tyranny, and where ordinary people try to carve out lives in the shadow of nuclear devastation. For players, it is not just a map to explore, but a mirror reflecting the questions at the heart of Fallout. What does it mean to rebuild, to trust, to survive, and to hope? As players wander deeper into the Commonwealth, it becomes clear that the world is not just filled with factions and settlements, but also countless hidden stories embedded in the ruins. Fallout 4 thrives on environmental storytelling, where the position of a skeleton, the placement of a note, or the discovery of a holotape can reveal tragedies or jokes that enrich the world. These moments often feel like Easter eggs, rewarding those who take the time to look beyond the main quest. They are a large part of what makes the Commonwealth endlessly replayable, because no matter how many times one explores it, new details can still emerge from overlooked corners. One of the most poignant examples of this storytelling comes from the town of Concord. While most players associate Concord with the early quest involving the Minutemen and Preston Garvey, those who look closer discover smaller stories tucked into the town's ruins. In abandoned houses, skeletons are posed in ways that suggest how residents spent their final moments as the bombs fell. A skeleton slumped over a crib with a baby's toy nearby speaks volumes without a single line of dialogue. These scenes remind players that beyond the large-scale conflicts, the Commonwealth is filled with the personal tragedies of everyday people caught in the apocalypse. The outskirts of Boston are particularly rich in these details. At the Super Duper Mart, players encounter ghouls wandering through the aisles of a ruined supermarket. This location captures Fallout's satirical edge, mocking consumer culture by turning a temple of shopping into a hunting ground for the undead. The scattered goods, broken checkout counters, and ruined advertisements all reinforce the idea that the excesses of pre-war society persisted even in its collapse. The irony of ghouls shuffling through aisles as if still shopping decades later makes the Super Duper Mart one of the most memorable early dungeons in the Commonwealth. Another standout location is the Milton General Hospital. Inside, players face feral ghouls among crumbling hallways and operating rooms. But beyond the combat, the hospital contains records and notes that reveal stories of patients and staff during the final days before the bombs. One terminal describes frantic attempts to evacuate, while another recounts the hopelessness of doctors overwhelmed by casualties. The juxtaposition of medical care and violent chaos makes the hospital one of the more haunting areas in the game, showing how even places meant for healing could not escape the devastation. The Commonwealth also thrives on blending humor with horror. One example is the Pickman Gallery, a location filled with macabre artwork created by a deranged man named Pickman. The gallery is littered with gruesome paintings made using the remains of raiders, turning gore into art. While disturbing, this location is also a darkly humorous reference to the short story Pickman's Model by Howard Phillips Lovecraft, a writer frequently referenced throughout Fallout. The gallery's unsettling tone contrasts with the more straightforward battles elsewhere, giving players a glimpse into the twisted psyches that emerged in the wasteland. Boston Common, a Central Park area in the city, hides one of Fallout 4's most famous encounters. Here, players can stumble upon Swan, a super mutant behemoth lurking in the pond. Swan is revealed through environmental hints, skeletons chained to a swan boat, notes warning of danger, and the monster's sudden emergence when approached. This fight is one of the most surprising in the game, turning an ordinary park into the site of a boss battle. The design of this encounter shows how the Commonwealth layers spectacle on top of history, transforming a well-known landmark into a stage for one of its most memorable monsters. The Faneuil Hall building is another historical site reimagined in Fallout 4. Once a marketplace and meeting hall central to Boston's revolutionary history, it is now overrun by raiders. Exploring its decayed interior while fending off enemies allows players to walk through the echoes of American independence, twisted by post-nuclear decay. The irony of a building that once symbolized freedom, now serving as a raider stronghold, reflects Fallout's larger theme of history repeating itself, often in cruelly ironic ways. In addition to its landmarks, the Commonwealth also excels in populating its wilderness with strange encounters. Players wandering the forests or rural areas may stumble across random events, such as traveling caravans, wandering robots, or mysterious strangers. One of the most famous is the encounter with the Scribe, a Brotherhood of Steel member searching for lost technology. Another involves finding a crashed UFO, leading to a hidden alien with a unique weapon. These encounters reinforce the sense that the Commonwealth is unpredictable, alive with secrets waiting to be discovered. Quests tied to obscure characters further enrich the region. One such quest involves Kent Connolly, a ghoul obsessed with the pre-war radio hero, the Silver Shroud. Kent recruits the player to take on the mantle of the vigilante, dressing in the Silver Shroud costume and delivering justice across the city. The quest is both campy and clever, blending Fallout's love for retro pop culture with its dark humor. By role-playing as a pulp hero in a ruined city, players experience one of the most unique storylines in Fallout 4, an Easter egg-filled celebration of the game's retro influences. The Museum of Witchcraft questline, mentioned earlier, deserves more detail because of how well it demonstrates Fallout's ability to build atmosphere. From the moment players approach the museum, eerie sounds echo from within. Inside, the dark hallways are filled with overturned displays and unsettling noises. Notes hint at raiders who attempted to plunder the building only to meet grisly ends. The eventual reveal of the Deathclaw lurking within is terrifying, as the game builds tension through sound and suggestion before unleashing one of its deadliest creatures. This encounter is not just a fight, but a masterclass in horror design within a Fallout framework. Goodneighbor's location in the ruins of Boston is also worth deeper exploration. Its culture of independence and freedom contrasts sharply with the order enforced by Diamond City. Characters like Hancock embody the spirit of rebellion, rejecting conformity in favor of individuality. The presence of underground clubs, neon lights, and music gives Goodneighbor a noir-like atmosphere, reminiscent of old crime dramas. This unique tone sets it apart from other settlements in the Commonwealth, making it a haven for outcasts and a symbol of alternative survival. Diamond City itself contains countless small details that flesh out its identity. The baseball theme runs throughout the settlement, with vendors selling baseball memorabilia and NPCs debating the history of the sport. Some characters even misinterpret baseball as a violent combat sport, reflecting how history has been distorted over centuries. This humorous detail reinforces Fallout's theme that memory and tradition are fragile, easily twisted by time and ignorance. The city also includes the Dugout Inn, run by the quirky Bobrov brothers, whose comedic banter provides levity amidst the tension of the wasteland. The Mass Fusion building offers another memorable questline, where players infiltrate the skyscraper to secure powerful technology. The building itself is a towering ruin filled with vertibird battles and dangerous enemies. Its design emphasizes vertical exploration with elevators, collapsed floors, and dizzying heights. The quest culminates in a dramatic confrontation that impacts the balance of power between the Institute and its enemies. This location not only provides thrilling gameplay, but also serves as a symbolic battleground for the struggle over technology's future in the Commonwealth. Another striking location is the USS Constitution questline, which deserves revisiting for its sheer humor and charm. The ship's robotic crew, including the pompous Captain Ironsides, believes they are still serving the Navy centuries after the war. Their dedication to duty, despite their absurd situation, is both comical and strangely inspiring. The sight of a wooden warship outfitted with rocket engines is one of the most absurd and delightful images in Fallout 4, embodying the series' ability to balance satire with heart. The glowing sea, already described as a terrifying wasteland, also contains hidden stories. Among the ruins lies the settlement of Virgil, a former Institute scientist who fled after experimenting on himself. His questline explores themes of redemption, science, and mutation as players help him search for a cure. The desolation of the glowing sea makes Virgil's isolated laboratory all the more striking, a lonely beacon in a sea of radiation. This storyline adds depth to the Commonwealth by reminding players that personal struggles can be as significant as factional wars. Radiation storms add further atmosphere to the Commonwealth. As the sky darkens and green lightning crackles, players feel the oppressive weight of a world forever changed by nuclear fire. These storms not only increase tension during exploration, but also enhance the immersion of survival. They are a reminder that even centuries after the bombs fell, the environment itself remains hostile, shaping the daily lives of those who struggle to endure. The Commonwealth also thrives on references to Fallout's broader lore. Terminals, holotapes, and dialogue often mention events or places from earlier games, connecting Fallout 4 to the franchise's history. References to the Enclave, Vault Tech, and distant locations like the Mojave or the Capital Wasteland appear throughout. These nods serve as Easter eggs for longtime fans, rewarding their knowledge of the series while expanding the sense that Fallout's world is interconnected and vast. Companions beyond Nick and Piper add further richness to the Commonwealth. Kate, an Irish fighter found in the combat zone, has a storyline centered on addiction and redemption. Her journey explores themes of trauma, survival, and the search for purpose in a harsh world. Curie, a robot scientist who can later gain a synth body, embodies Fallout's exploration of identity and humanity. Her transition from machine to person raises questions about what defines consciousness and selfhood. These companions ensure that the Commonwealth is not just a stage for conflict, but also a place for deeply personal stories. Even minor characters contribute to the Commonwealth's texture. Sheffield, a homeless man in Diamond City who simply asks for a Nuka-Cola, reflects the small human moments that persist in the wasteland. Characters like Mo Cronin, who sells baseball bats while explaining his hilariously inaccurate view of the sport, provide humor that balances the game's darker elements. These small interactions build a world that feels populated and alive, where every individual has a story worth hearing. At its core, the Commonwealth is defined by its contradictions. It is a place of towering ruins and small settlements, of scientific marvels and desperate scavenging, of humor and horror, of freedom and control. Fallout 4 captures these contradictions and turns them into a setting that feels rich, layered, and endlessly explorable. By blending real history with post-nuclear imagination, the Commonwealth becomes more than just a backdrop. It becomes a character in its own right, filled with secrets, tragedies, and triumphs waiting to be uncovered. One of the most distinctive features of the Commonwealth is how Bethesda wove Boston's real history and culture into Fallout's post-nuclear setting. Walking through the ruins feels like exploring a warped museum of American heritage, where monuments, landmarks, and traditions have been twisted by centuries of decay. The developers leaned heavily into Massachusetts' Revolutionary War legacy, turning it into both inspiration and satire. This constant interplay between history and fiction ensures that the Commonwealth stands out even among other Fallout settings. The Freedom Trail is perhaps the most obvious example of this design philosophy. In real life, the Freedom Trail is a marked path that guides tourists through Boston's most historic sites. In Fallout 4, it becomes a literal puzzle, leading players through ruined landmarks and eventually to the headquarters of the railroad in the Old North Church. Following the red brick path through the ruins of Boston is both a gameplay mechanic and a symbolic journey through the echoes of liberty. It demonstrates Fallout's ability to take real history and reframe it in ways that feel both familiar and haunting. Another example lies in the Battle of Bunker Hill, which in Fallout 4 has been reimagined as a tense confrontation between factions. The tall obelisk monument still towers over the site, but the area has become a bustling trade hub rather than a battlefield. Players become embroiled in espionage and betrayal as factions clash over synth refugees. By placing such drama at Bunker Hill, the game underscores its theme of repeating history. A site of freedom in the Revolution becomes, centuries later, the stage for another struggle over identity and independence. The USS Constitution questline adds yet another layer of historical satire. The ship, once a proud vessel in America's Navy, has been absurdly repurposed by robots who believe they are still serving their country. Watching the wooden warship launch into the air with jury-rigged rocket engines is one of Fallout 4's most surreal and beloved moments. It turns Boston's maritime legacy into a parody of loyalty and persistence as the robotic crew continues a mission long after its meaning has been lost. Fenway Park's transformation into Diamond City is another example of Fallout's historical remixing. Baseball, often called America's pastime, becomes the foundation for a fortified settlement. The irony is sharpened by the way Diamond City residents misremember baseball, interpreting it as a violent combat sport rather than a game. Vendors sell baseball bats as weapons, and the stadium walls that once echoed with cheering crowds now stand as bulwarks against raiders and mutants. This reinterpretation of baseball is both funny and tragic, showing how culture can be warped when memory fades. The Massachusetts State House is another landmark, reimagined in the Commonwealth. The golden dome of the building still shines, but inside it has been overtaken by feral ghouls and rubble. Exploring the ruins of a building once central to governance is a poignant reminder of how fragile human institutions are in the face of catastrophe. The contrast between the building's symbolic importance and its current state of decay reinforces Fallout's satirical edge, turning a monument of authority into just another dungeon to scavenge. Salem's Museum of Witchcraft, already described in earlier parts, adds to the Commonwealth's reliance on New England's folklore. By placing one of the game's most terrifying encounters in this location, the developers tied Boston's history of superstition and fear to Fallout's mutated horrors. The result is an experience that feels deeply tied to Massachusetts's cultural memory, while still delivering a fresh scare in a post-apocalyptic context. Quests like the Silver Shroud storyline further emphasize the Commonwealth's blending of history and pop culture. By role-playing as a pulp hero in the ruins of Boston, the player connects to Fallout's retro aesthetic while also shaping the city's present. This quest is more than a side activity. It is an exploration of how myths and stories shape societies, even in the wasteland. The way characters react to the Silver Shroud persona demonstrates how people cling to symbols of justice and hope when their world is falling apart. The Commonwealth is also rich with stories about science gone wrong. The Institute, hidden beneath the ruins, embodies both the promise and the danger of unchecked technological power. Its sterile laboratories stand in stark contrast to the chaos above ground, symbolizing the divide between those who seek to control humanity's future and those who struggle simply to survive. The Institute's creation of synths, who are nearly indistinguishable from humans, forces players to confront questions of identity and rights. Are synths people or tools? This moral dilemma is one of the Commonwealth's defining features, and it echoes Fallout's tradition of embedding philosophical questions into its gameplay. Vaults across the Commonwealth also expand on this theme of science as cruelty disguised as protection. Vault 81's hidden experiments, Vault 95's cruel manipulation of addicts, and Vault 114's authoritarian overseer design all show how institutions betray trust. These vaults serve as miniature allegories within the larger story, reinforcing Fallout's skepticism about authority and progress. They remind players that survival in the wasteland is often less about grand ideals and more about endurance in the face of betrayal. The Glowing Sea amplifies these themes with its environmental storytelling. As the most irradiated area in the Commonwealth, it represents the long-lasting scars of nuclear war. The barren craters, constant storms, and monstrous creatures reflect both the physical and moral fallout of humanity's choices. Venturing into the Glowing Sea is not just a gameplay challenge, but a symbolic journey into the heart of devastation. Meeting the children of Adam there reinforces Fallout's satirical take on religion, as zealots embrace radiation as divine, turning destruction into dogma. The Commonwealth's creatures also carry symbolic weight. Deathclaws embody the raw terror of mutation, while radstags reflect the twisted survival of wildlife in a hostile world. Mirelurks, lurking in rivers and coastlines, highlight the fragility of settlements near water, while the glowing ones serve as eerie reminders of radiation's grip. Each creature adds to the atmosphere, making exploration unpredictable and reinforcing the sense that humanity no longer rules the earth. Companions in the Commonwealth add depth by offering personal perspectives on these larger themes. Nick Valentine explores identity. Piper embodies the search for truth. Kate wrestles with addiction, and Curie grapples with the meaning of humanity. Their stories ensure that the Commonwealth is not just about factions and landmarks, but also about individuals navigating moral gray areas. Traveling with them allows players to see the world through different lenses, enriching the narrative and grounding the broader conflicts in personal experiences. Even the game's mechanics tie into the Commonwealth's themes. The settlement building system allows players to embody the role of a community leader, transforming ruins into havens. This mechanic mirrors the Minutemen's mission, emphasizing the importance of rebuilding from the ground up. It reinforces the idea that survival is not just about scavenging, but about cooperation and structure. Players who invest in settlements experience a sense of ownership and pride, echoing the themes of resilience and hope that run throughout Fallout 4. Small encounters further illustrate the Commonwealth's richness. Random events on the road, such as stumbling upon traveling merchants, wandering robots, or mysterious strangers, make the world feel alive. Skeletons posed in suggestive ways, a couple in bed, a soldier clutching his weapon, a family huddled together, tell silent stories of the apocalypse's first moments. These details do not demand attention, but reward curiosity, encouraging players to slow down and reflect. The Commonwealth also contains nods to Fallout's broader lore, References to the Enclave, the Brotherhood's history, and other regions remind players that this world is part of a larger narrative. Terminal entries and holotapes mention distant places like the Mojave or the Capital Wasteland, connecting Fallout 4 to the rest of the series. These small details weave the Commonwealth into the franchise's tapestry, making it feel like one chapter in a much larger story. At its core, the Commonwealth is defined by contrast. It is a place where historical monuments stand beside futuristic laboratories, where humor coexists with horror, and where hope struggles against despair. Fallout 4 uses the Commonwealth to explore questions about identity, technology, and survival, all while grounding its story in real-world history. The result is a setting that feels uniquely American and uniquely Fallout, a place where every corner holds a secret and every ruin tells a story. The Commonwealth endures as one of the most memorable settings in the series because it captures Fallout's essence so completely. It is a world where the past is never truly gone, where progress and failure intertwine, and where survival depends on both ingenuity and compassion. Whether exploring Diamond City, venturing into the glowing sea, or uncovering the secrets of the Institute, players are constantly reminded that the Commonwealth is more than just a backdrop. It is a mirror, reflecting humanity's flaws, resilience, and capacity for both cruelty and hope. The Commonwealth has a way of constantly surprising players, even long after the main quests have been completed. This is because Bethesda filled the world with layers of detail that often only emerge through exploration, curiosity, and attention to the environment. Fallout 4's map is not simply a collection of locations connected by fast travel points. It is a living space full of secrets, small narratives, and subtle nods to both real-world culture and the broader Fallout universe. One striking example of this comes from the numerous skeleton scenes scattered throughout the ruins. While at first they may seem like simple props, many of them tell miniature stories. In a home just outside Boston, a skeleton lies across a desk with a pistol nearby and notes that reveal despair at the end of the world. In another, two skeletons sit side by side holding hands in a bed, suggesting a quiet acceptance of fate. Elsewhere, a skeleton can be found inside a refrigerator, a darkly humorous reference to pulp fiction tropes about surviving explosions. These small vignettes demonstrate Fallout's ability to deliver both humor and heartbreak without a single line of spoken dialogue. The Commonwealth's ruined transportation network also contains hidden details. Collapsed highways and metro tunnels form a web of exploration opportunities, often housing raiders, ghouls, or scavengers. The metro tunnels, in particular, act as time capsules of the pre-war world, filled with advertisements, abandoned luggage, and the remnants of ordinary commuters. In one tunnel, a skeleton still clutches a briefcase, as if late for work on the day the bombs fell. These environmental touches highlight the suddenness of the apocalypse, freezing people in the moments of their daily routines. Another memorable location is Jamaica Plain, a small town that once hosted a treasure of Jamaica Plain. The town's pre-war leadership tried to attract tourism with this promise, but the treasure is revealed to be nothing more than a collection of memorabilia and trinkets. Raiders, ghouls, and scavengers still fight over it, unaware of its lack of real value. This quest is a satire of both human greed and marketing gimmicks, showing how empty promises can outlive entire civilizations. The irony of people dying over worthless junk centuries later makes Jamaica Plain a quintessential Fallout location. The General Atomics Galleria, offers another layer of humor and darkness. This pre-war shopping plaza was once staffed entirely by robots, and when players discover it, those robots are still faithfully running their stores as if nothing has changed. The manager robot insists on proper behavior, while other robots serve roles like selling clothes, food, and trinkets. However, the absurdity is quickly revealed as the shops are filled with worthless goods and the robots are incapable of adapting to the apocalypse. This location pokes fun at consumerism, automation, and corporate branding, all staples of Fallout's satirical edge. The Boston police rationing site adds a grim touch of realism to the Commonwealth. Inside, players find records of desperate citizens lining up for supplies during the early days of the war. Skeletons remain in place, huddled around counters where food was once handed out. Notes describe riots and breakdowns as resources ran out. This location reflects how quickly social order collapsed, despite the presence of authority figures. The site's haunting stillness makes it one of the most sobering reminders of the human cost of nuclear war. Smaller Easter eggs pepper the Commonwealth as well. In one ruined home, players find a skeleton wearing a military helmet lying next to a toy soldier set, a darkly comedic nod to the blending of play and reality. In another, a skeleton sits with a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum surrounded by empty bottles, suggesting someone spent their last moments indulging in a sugar rush. These details may not alter the grand story of the Commonwealth, but they enrich the experience, giving each corner of the map a unique story to tell. The Minutemen's questline further highlights the Commonwealth's theme of rebuilding. As players reclaim settlements and connect them through supply lines, they gradually transform the wasteland into a more stable region. This mechanic allows players to see tangible results of their efforts, from farms producing crops to settlers defending their homes with walls and turrets. It reinforces Fallout's question of whether humanity can rebuild trust and community after catastrophe. The Minutemen's successes and failures mirror the struggles of any society trying to balance freedom, responsibility, and survival. The Brotherhood of Steel's presence in the Commonwealth also provides rich narrative material. The sight of the Pridwin airship hovering over Boston is both awe-inspiring and intimidating. The Brotherhood's rigid hierarchy and authoritarian policies reflect Fallout's exploration of how technology can become both salvation and tyranny. Interactions with characters like Elder Maxon reveal the complexity of the Brotherhood's ideology, as they see themselves as humanity's protectors, but often act as conquerors. The Commonwealth becomes a stage where their vision of order collides with the more decentralized approaches of the Minutemen and the Railroad. The Railroad, hidden beneath the Old North Church, embodies secrecy and resistance. Their mission to protect synths adds depth to the Commonwealth's conflicts, forcing players to grapple with questions about identity and freedom. Are synths machines, or are they people with souls? Fallout 4 does not provide easy answers, but it uses the Railroad to explore the moral ambiguities of survival in a world shaped by technology. Their underground base and coded communication methods make them feel like a true resistance movement, adding to the Commonwealth's atmosphere of hidden struggles. The Institute, perhaps the most divisive faction in Fallout 4, reflects humanity's ambition and arrogance. Their white laboratories shine with sterile brilliance, a stark contrast to the ruins above. The Institute sees itself as the last hope for civilization, but its disregard for individual freedom and its reliance on replacing people with synths create widespread fear. The Commonwealth's conflicts often circle back to the Institute, as it represents both the potential for progress and the danger of control. Exploring its pristine halls while hearing the chaos above makes players question what kind of future is worth fighting for. The Commonwealth's smaller factions and groups also contribute to its richness. Raiders, with their crude camps and brutal tactics, embody the chaos of lawlessness. Gunners, better armed and organized, reflect the rise of mercenary culture in the wasteland. Children of Adam, worshippers of radiation, bring religious zealotry into the mix. Each group adds diversity to the Commonwealth's conflicts, ensuring that players face a wide range of challenges and philosophies. Music throughout the Commonwealth further enhances its atmosphere. Diamond City Radio plays oldies with a retro flair, grounding the setting in Fallout's iconic soundscape. Travis, the nervous DJ, provides comic relief, and his growth over time mirrors the game's theme of resilience. Classical music stations, military broadcasts, and even eerie silence during radiation storms all contribute to the Commonwealth's immersive feel. The audio design ensures that every moment feels distinct, whether players are relaxing in a settlement or fighting for their lives in the ruins. The Commonwealth's map is also filled with references to Fallout's broader universe. Terminals mention places like the Mojave and the Capital Wasteland, linking Fallout 4 to the larger series. Weapons, armor, and technology tie back to earlier games, creating continuity for longtime fans. These connections make the Commonwealth feel like part of a living, evolving world rather than an isolated story. Ultimately, the Commonwealth stands out because it captures the essence of Fallout's storytelling. It is a place where history and satire collide, where tragedy and humor coexist, and where humanity's struggles play out on both small and large scales. Whether battling raiders in a ruined supermarket, uncovering secrets beneath the Old North Church, or simply stumbling upon a skeleton frozen in its final moment, players are constantly reminded that the Commonwealth is more than a map. It is a narrative woven from countless threads of history, imagination, and human resilience. The Commonwealth continues to resonate with players because it asks enduring questions. Can humanity rebuild after destroying itself? Is progress worth the cost of freedom? Are the remnants of history a guide to the future, or simply reminders of mistakes? Fallout 4 does not provide simple answers, but through the Commonwealth, it allows players to explore these questions while immersed in one of the most detailed wastelands ever created. The wasteland around Boston is layered with so many secrets that players often discover new things even after dozens of hours of exploration. Part of the reason for this depth is that Bethesda designed the world not only as a space for quests, but as a tapestry of small narratives, Easter eggs, and environmental storytelling. Every ruined home, collapsed bridge, and crumbling skyscraper carries the potential for discovery, making this setting one of the most dynamic in the Fallout series. One particularly memorable detail is the way skeletons and props are used to tell silent stories. In one ruined house, a skeleton wearing a party hat lies slumped over a table surrounded by empty bottles, suggesting that someone chose to face the end of the world in celebration rather than fear. In another location, a skeleton is found in a bathtub with a toaster, a morbidly humorous nod to dark jokes about electricity. These tiny touches require no dialogue or quest markers, yet they capture the tone of Fallout perfectly, mixing grim tragedy with absurd comedy. The region's metro tunnels also preserve the last moments of pre-war life. Abandoned suitcases line the platforms, posters still hang from the walls, and ticket booths remain frozen in time. Some tunnels are overrun with feral ghouls, their presence hinting that perhaps some of the commuters never made it out alive. In one tunnel, a skeleton sits upright on a bench with a newspaper in its hands, as if still waiting for the train. These details add a haunting realism, reminding players that the apocalypse struck during an ordinary day, cutting short lives mid-routine. Boston's ruins also feature elaborate dungeons like the Corvega Assembly Plant, which stands out as both a combat challenge and a satire of pre-war corporate ambition. Once an automobile factory, it now serves as a raider stronghold, its assembly lines and platforms turned into barricades and sniper perches. Exploring the plant reveals terminals filled with memos about workplace disputes and mechanical failures, showing how even before the bombs, the company was struggling. This layered storytelling ties together Fallout's critique of consumer culture and its fascination with ruined industry. Another powerful example of this world building comes from Quincy, a ruined town controlled by heavily armed mercenaries known as the Gunners. This area is notorious for its difficulty, as enemies carry advanced weapons and armor. But beyond the combat challenge, Quincy holds significant narrative weight. It is revealed to have been one of the Minutemen's greatest failures, as they were unable to defend it from attack. Notes and dialogue hint at the collapse of trust in the militia after Quincy's fall, which explains why the faction is in such disarray when the player meets Preston Garvey. This ruined town, then, is more than just a battlefield. It is a symbol of loss and the fragility of ideals in the wasteland. The Boston Police Rationing Site is another location that lingers in memory because of its haunting atmosphere. Here, players find skeletons huddled around counters and terminals filled with records of ration distribution. Desperate civilians once waited here for food and water as the world collapsed, but the supplies eventually ran out and order dissolved. The silence of the site, broken only by the Geiger counter's crackle or the scuttling of radroaches, makes it one of the most sobering reminders of how quickly society unraveled. Contrast that bleakness with the absurd humor of the General Atomics Galleria, a pre-war shopping center operated entirely by robots. When players arrive, the robots are still faithfully running their stores centuries later, selling useless junk and enforcing rules that no longer make sense. The manager robot insists on discipline and order, while the others attempt to mimic retail employees with unsettling cheerfulness. The absurdity of shopping for clothes and food from robots in a world of ruin highlights Fallout's satirical edge, poking fun at automation, corporate culture, and blind adherence to routine. Good Neighbor, with its neon signs and seedy clubs, offers a different flavor of survival. Governed by Hancock, a ghoul who embraces freedom and rebellion, this settlement thrives on individuality and defiance. Its smoky bars, underground music, and shady deals give it a noir-like atmosphere reminiscent of crime dramas from the mid-20th century. By contrasting Good Neighbor with the structured life of Diamond City, Fallout 4 illustrates the variety of survival strategies that emerge in the wasteland. Some communities rely on walls and rules, while others flourish in chaos and independence. Diamond City itself is layered with details that reveal how history is remembered and misremembered. Baseball memorabilia is sold throughout the market, but residents have distorted the sport into something far more violent than it ever was. Vendors like Mo Cronin enthusiastically describe baseball as a gladiatorial contest where players fought with bats and spiked armor. This comedic misinterpretation of history shows how easily memory is reshaped over time. It also reflects Fallout's theme that the past, though revered, is often misunderstood or misused. The combat zone provides another stark contrast, functioning as both an arena and a den of vice. Once a theater, it is now a lawless space where raiders stage gladiator-style battles. Inside, players meet Kate, a companion whose story of addiction and struggle adds emotional weight to the chaos around her. The combat zone's atmosphere, filled with cheering raiders and blood-stained stages, feels both grotesque and theatrical, reinforcing Fallout's interest in spectacle even amidst ruin. Settlement building also contributes to the sense of discovery in the region. By reclaiming ruined towns and farms, players transform the wasteland in tangible ways. Settlers grow crops, build defenses, and create new communities under the player's leadership. This mechanic ties directly to the Minutemen's ideology of mutual aid and cooperation, allowing players to see their efforts reshape the landscape. The contrast between ruined cities and thriving new settlements emphasizes the central question of Fallout, whether humanity can truly rebuild after destruction. The Institute, hidden beneath the ruins, remains the most divisive force in the region. Its pristine laboratories and advanced synth technology highlight both progress and tyranny. On one hand, the Institute represents a vision of the future where humanity masters science to survive. On the other, it embodies secrecy, manipulation, and disregard for individual freedom. The contrast between its sterile halls and the chaos above ground makes its existence feel both miraculous and sinister. The moral dilemma of siding with or against the Institute forces players to reflect on whether progress justifies sacrifice. Companions across the wasteland also provide deeply personal windows into survival. Nick Valentine, the noir-style synth detective, embodies questions about identity and humanity. Piper Wright, the persistent journalist, fights for truth in a world of lies. Kate wrestles with trauma and addiction, while Curie evolves from a curious robot into a person questioning her own existence. Traveling with these companions ensures that exploration is never just about loot or combat, but also about shared stories, perspectives, and growth. The Silver Shroud questline remains one of the most charming Easter eggs in the entire game. By donning the costume of a pre-war radio hero, players become a pulp vigilante, delivering justice across Boston's ruins. The quest embraces campy dialogue, exaggerated theatrics, and moral clarity in a world otherwise defined by ambiguity. Characters react with disbelief, amusement, or admiration, making it one of the most memorable side stories. It also exemplifies Fallout's ability to balance sincerity with satire, celebrating pop culture while simultaneously mocking it. The Glowing Sea, with its oppressive atmosphere and mutated horrors, stands as the wasteland's ultimate symbol of devastation. Venturing into its storms requires preparation, but the reward is a haunting glimpse into ground zero of nuclear war. Among the ruins lies Virgil, a scientist who mutated himself in desperation and now seeks a cure. His isolation in such a desolate place underscores the theme of resilience, showing how even in the harshest conditions, hope for redemption persists. The Glowing Sea is both a gameplay challenge and a metaphorical reminder of the scars humanity leaves on the world. Everywhere in the wasteland, small stories reinforce its identity. A skeleton slumped against a jukebox with a bottle in hand captures one last dance. A child's room preserved in perfect detail contrasts innocence with devastation. Terminals filled with corporate memos parody the excesses of pre-war society, while holotapes reveal heartfelt goodbyes. These fragments combine into a mosaic of human experience, ensuring that the region feels alive with memory even centuries after the bombs. The power of this setting lies in its contradictions. It is a place where humor and horror coexist, where progress and decay intertwine, and where freedom and tyranny constantly clash. Fallout 4's world is not simply a playground for quests. It is a reflection of humanity's resilience, flaws, and ability to find meaning amidst ruin. By blending real history with post-nuclear imagination, the developers created a stage that continues to resonate with players long after the credits roll. Exploring the wasteland often reveals that the smallest details can be just as memorable as the main quests. This is especially true in Boston's Outskirts, where hidden corners tell stories that are easy to miss if you only follow the critical path. Bethesda filled these areas with subtle world building, ensuring that curiosity is always rewarded. One abandoned shack might contain notes from a survivor struggling to provide for their family, while a collapsed diner may preserve a skeleton slumped in a booth beside untouched plates of food. These quiet vignettes show how everyday life was cut short, and they create a lingering sense of melancholy that colors the entire experience. A standout location that illustrates this layered storytelling is the USS Constitution. Once a historic naval vessel, it now rests atop a ruined building and is crewed entirely by robots who believe themselves to still be loyal sailors of the United States Navy. Their captain, a modified Mr. Handy, speaks with pomp and dignity, ordering the crew to maintain the ship as if it could still sail. When players assist them, the ship eventually takes flight, thanks to rocket engines bolted onto its hull, crashing into rooftops before setting course across the city. The absurdity of this moment blends with genuine charm, turning a ridiculous sight into one of Fallout's most beloved quests. The Massachusetts State House is another landmark steeped in both history and danger. Inside, the ruined halls are filled with raiders, but deeper exploration reveals a cavern where Mirelurks nest, hinting at how nature has reclaimed spaces once dedicated to governance. Skeletons of long-dead politicians and guards lie scattered across desks and corridors, offering a dark reflection on the collapse of civil order. The combination of political history and grotesque infestation captures Fallout's central theme. The institutions of the past are powerless in the face of nuclear ruin. In the Outskirts, one can stumble upon Walden Pond, famously tied to writer Henry David Thoreau. The location is more than just a nod to literature, it is also filled with satirical touches. Raiders have taken over the pond, filling the area with crude traps and graffiti, a sharp contrast to the transcendentalist ideals Thoreau once espoused. A hidden cave nearby contains references to his work, including a journal entry parodying his writings, reminding players that Fallout often balances homage with mockery. This combination of reverence and humor demonstrates how the game weaves cultural references into its world while still staying true to its playful tone. Another memorable site is the Boston Public Library. While its halls are overrun with super mutants, it also contains terminals and holotapes detailing attempts by pre-war staff to protect books as the bombs fell. Notes describe librarians desperately trying to preserve knowledge even as society crumbled. Players can also collect overdue books and return them to a still functioning machine in exchange for tokens, a small mechanic that adds charm and humor to the exploration. This fusion of danger and whimsy exemplifies Fallout's unique design philosophy. Medford Memorial Hospital offers a darker slice of storytelling, The ruined wards and operating theaters are filled with ghouls, but the true horror comes from terminals describing patients abandoned as the bombs fell. In one chilling detail, the skeletons of doctors and patients remain strapped to gurneys and wheelchairs, as if frozen in their final moments. This environment turns what could have been a routine dungeon into a sobering reminder of how fragile human systems are when faced with catastrophe. The hospital stands as one of the bleakest, yet most hauntingly effective areas in the region. The Boston Common, now patrolled by the Swan super mutant behemoth, remains one of the most striking encounters in the game. At first glance, it seems like an ordinary pond filled with debris, but hidden notes and environmental clues reveal the tragic backstory of Swan. Once a man subjected to cruel experiments by the Institute, he mutated into a monstrous figure who eventually broke free and claimed the pond as his territory. Discovering his tale through scattered documents deepens the encounter, transforming what could have been just another boss fight into a tragic reflection on lost humanity. Small details across Boston reinforce the sense of history misremembered. Baseball is famously distorted into a gladiatorial sport, but other examples exist as well. A pre-war school contains classrooms where lessons about civil defense were taught, complete with posters instructing children to duck and cover during nuclear attacks. These remnants of Cold War-era fears are exaggerated into satire, reminding players that the optimism of mid-century America was built on anxieties about annihilation. The juxtaposition of cheerful posters and ruined classrooms emphasizes how fragile that optimism truly was. Trinity Tower is another major location filled with both danger and story. Once a radio broadcasting site, it is now a super mutant stronghold. Inside, players discover Rex Goodman, a radio host captured while trying to teach the mutants Shakespearean drama. His companion, a mutant named Strong, believes that consuming the flesh of humans will grant him wisdom, based on a misinterpreted passage from Macbeth. This bizarre subplot perfectly illustrates Fallout's blend of dark humor and absurdity, showing how even the most grotesque enemies can be tied to strange, almost comical stories. Further west lies Fort Hagen, a site tied directly to the main storyline. The halls of the fort are filled with turrets and synths, and at its heart lies Kellogg, the mercenary whose actions set the entire narrative in motion. Exploring his quarters reveals notes, personal items, and evidence of his complex relationship with the Institute, painting him as more than just a simple villain. The confrontation here is both climactic and revealing, tying personal loss to the broader conflicts of the wasteland. The fort also reinforces Fallout's tendency to blend personal tragedy with political intrigue, ensuring that even antagonists carry nuance. Beyond specific quests, random encounters across the wasteland add variety and charm. You might come across a wandering bard playing pre-war songs on a violin, a group of raiders staging a mock execution, or a caravan attacked by mutant hounds. Some encounters reference pop culture, while others are entirely unique to Fallout's dark humor. These moments break up exploration, ensuring that no journey across the wasteland feels predictable. Each surprise encounter reinforces the idea that the world is alive, with stories waiting to be uncovered. The Museum of Witchcraft is one of the most chilling areas in the entire game. Advertised as a historical attraction, it is now filled with eerie sound effects, strange shadows, and unsettling clues. Exploring its dark halls eventually reveals a deathclaw lurking inside, turning the suspense into outright terror. Notes scattered throughout the museum reveal that raiders attempted to capture the creature for profit, only to meet gruesome ends. This questline highlights how Fallout can easily shift from campy humor to horror, reminding players of the diverse emotional palette the series employs. The ruins of universities and schools are also rich in environmental detail. Boston's academic reputation is reflected in locations like the Cambridge Polymer Labs, where players find a facility still operated by robots attempting to complete pre-war research. Inside, the player can participate in an experiment to create advanced armor, humorously guided by robotic staff who fail to realize that 2 centuries have passed. This blend of absurd persistence and genuine reward makes the lab a standout example of Fallout's satirical take on scientific ambition. Throughout the city, the presence of terminals ties the world together with snippets of lost stories. One computer might contain logs of an employee worried about layoffs. Another may reveal a tragic romance cut short by the war, while others hold hidden passwords and access codes that lead to treasures. This reliance on fragments of text makes exploration rewarding for those who take the time to read, adding layers of depth that go unnoticed by players who only skim through environments. The result is a world where silence is filled with voices from the past, speaking through screens and notes rather than dialogue. Encounters with synths further complicate the sense of morality. Some synths are hostile, patrolling ruins under institute orders, while others live freely in settlements or hide their identities entirely. Questlines involving these characters force players to consider questions of humanity, identity, and freedom. For instance, some settlers fear that their neighbors may secretly be synths, echoing real-world anxieties about infiltration and identity. Fallout uses these dilemmas to provoke thought, asking whether artificial beings deserve the same rights and respect as humans. The ambiguity ensures that players wrestle with more than just combat decisions. Even seemingly small mechanics tie into the storytelling. Collectible magazines like Grognak the Barbarian and Tales of a Junktown Jerky Vendor not only provide gameplay perks, but also flesh out pre-war pop culture. They reflect the tastes and fantasies of a society obsessed with escapism, even as it hurtled toward destruction. Finding these magazines scattered across the wasteland is both rewarding mechanically and illuminating thematically, reinforcing Fallout's ability to embed lore into even the smallest gameplay systems. By combining these layered details with overarching quests, the setting becomes more than a backdrop. It is a living character, filled with contradictions, humor, and horror. Every street corner offers the potential for discovery, and every ruin contains echoes of the past. This richness ensures that the region remains one of the most memorable in Fallout, a place where exploration is endlessly rewarding and where the line between survival and storytelling is always blurred. The strength of this world lies not only in its landmarks, but also in the way smaller settlements tell personal stories. Diamond City is perhaps the best example, standing as the most vibrant hub of activity in the region. Built inside the ruins of a baseball stadium, it represents resilience and adaptation as survivors turned a pre-war relic into a thriving community. Its green metal walls, patched together from salvaged seating and concrete, are a reminder that survival depends on creativity as much as strength. Vendors line the streets, offering food, weapons, and clothing, while townsfolk gossip about the latest rumors. The city is filled with side stories, from investigative journalist Piper uncovering conspiracies to suspicious merchants hiding shady dealings. The stadium itself becomes a living space where old traditions are reimagined for survival, creating a settlement that is both familiar and strange. Beyond its surface, Diamond City also highlights paranoia and prejudice. The fear of synth infiltration has taken root among many residents, leading to suspicion and occasional violence against outsiders. Posters warn citizens to remain vigilant, while whispered rumors circulate about neighbors secretly being machines in disguise. This atmosphere of distrust reflects real-world anxieties about identity and belonging, but exaggerated into Fallout's characteristic dark satire. When players engage with this community, they are forced to navigate not just trade and conversation, but also simmering tensions that can boil over with devastating consequences. Good Neighbor, in contrast, embodies an entirely different philosophy. Located in the ruins of Boston's historic neighborhoods, it thrives on freedom, crime, and eccentricity. Its leader, Hancock, is a ghoul who prizes liberty above all else, welcoming outcasts and criminals alike. The streets are filled with neon lights, ramshackle bars, and music echoing from clubs where performers sing to crowds of drifters. While Diamond City attempts to maintain order, Good Neighbor embraces chaos as its guiding principle. This contrast between cities captures Fallout's strength at portraying ideological diversity. Neither community is perfect, but both feel alive, driven by visions of what survival should mean. Settlement mechanics expand these themes further, allowing players to create their own havens throughout the wasteland. By gathering resources, building defenses, and recruiting settlers, one can transform barren land into thriving villages. Though some see this as a distraction from the main narrative, the system reflects the series' recurring theme of rebuilding. Crafting walls from scrap metal or planting crops in ruined fields mirrors the broader story of humanity, clawing back life after devastation. The satisfaction of seeing settlers gather around a campfire or defend their homes against raider attacks reinforces the sense that survival is not just individual but collective. Sanctuary Hills, the starting neighborhood, serves as the most personal example of this rebuilding. Once the home of the protagonist before the bombs fell, it lies in ruins when revisited 2 centuries later. Rusted cars, collapsed homes, and broken streets make it clear how much has changed, yet the ability to rebuild it into a functioning settlement carries deep symbolic weight. The neighborhood stands as both a reminder of loss and a canvas for renewal, embodying Fallout's central tension between despair and hope. Not all communities are so hopeful. Quincy is a ruined town overtaken by gunners, mercenaries who serve as one of the region's most dangerous enemy factions. Their occupation of Quincy is ruthless, leaving behind evidence of slaughter and subjugation. Exploring the ruins reveals terminals and notes describing the desperate resistance mounted by locals, all of whom were eventually overwhelmed. This grim outcome illustrates how power in the wasteland often comes not from ideals, but from sheer force. The contrast between thriving settlements like Diamond City and shattered towns like Quincy reinforces the fragility of civilization in the face of violence. The Minutemen offer another perspective on survival. Inspired by the militias of America's Revolutionary era, they represent a decentralized force of citizens banding together to defend their homes. At the start of the story, the Minutemen are fractured and nearly destroyed, but players have the opportunity to restore them into a functioning militia. Their vision of unity is idealistic, contrasting with the authoritarianism of the Brotherhood of Steel or the secrecy of the Institute. By helping settlements band together under their banner, the Minutemen's story arc embodies the hope of democracy reborn, though always at risk of collapsing under its own weight. The Brotherhood of Steel plays a significant role, arriving in massive airships to impose their vision of technological preservation. Clad in power armor and armed with advanced weapons, they see themselves as humanity's protectors, though their methods are often harsh. They demand loyalty, enforce strict rules, and view synths as abominations that must be destroyed. For some, they represent stability and strength. For others, they embody tyranny disguised as order. Their towering airship, the Pridwin, looms over the skyline as a constant reminder of their dominance. Interacting with them forces players to confront the question of whether strength without compassion can truly rebuild the world. The Institute offers perhaps the most complex ideology of all. Hidden deep beneath the ruins, it is a society of scientists who survived the war by isolating themselves underground. Their crowning achievement is the creation of synths, artificial humans indistinguishable from the real thing. To the Institute, this technology represents progress and the potential rebirth of civilization. To outsiders, it is a source of fear, mistrust, and oppression. Stories of abductions, replacements, and experiments fuel the wasteland's paranoia. The Institute's secrecy ensures that they remain both fascinating and terrifying, representing the double-edged sword of scientific ambition unchecked by accountability. The Railroad stands as a counterpoint, devoted to freeing synths and treating them as equals to humans. Their underground network smuggles synths out of the Institute and helps them start new lives with altered memories. While some view their mission as noble, others see it as dangerous, destabilizing, and naive. Their existence raises difficult questions about identity and morality. If a synth believes they are human, are they not deserving of the same rights? Fallout thrives in these ambiguous spaces, where morality is subjective and choices carry weight. Amid these ideological struggles, smaller factions add eccentricity. The Atom Cats, a gang of greasers obsessed with power armor, fill their garage with retro music, leather jackets, and modified suits. Their mix of humor and combat effectiveness makes them one of the most light-hearted yet memorable groups in the wasteland. Meanwhile, raider gangs, trappers, and scavengers embody the darker side of survival, thriving on violence and plunder rather than cooperation. These smaller groups flesh out the ecosystem of the wasteland, ensuring that every encounter feels distinct and unpredictable. Environmental details reinforce these themes constantly. Abandoned houses often contain skeletons, posed in haunting positions, a parent shielding a child, a couple holding hands, or workers collapsed at their desks. Each tableau tells a silent story, requiring no quest marker to be meaningful. These small discoveries give weight to exploration, turning ordinary ruins into powerful reminders of the human cost of nuclear war. The combination of humor, tragedy, and horror ensures that every journey across the wasteland carries emotional resonance. Vaults scattered across the region also tell their own disturbing stories. Vault 81, for example, appears at first to be one of the few functioning, stable vaults. Its residents seem ordinary, living structured lives underground, yet deeper exploration reveals secret experiments conducted by Vault Tech scientists, testing diseases and treatments on unsuspecting subjects. The balance between stability and hidden cruelty encapsulates the broader theme of trust and betrayal that defines Fallout's vault narratives. Each vault becomes a parable about the dangers of blind faith in institutions. The ruins of factories and industrial complexes also provide insight into the pre-war world. Mass fusion, once a leading company in nuclear power, becomes a site of conflict between factions seeking to control its resources. Corvega, the car manufacturer, lies in ruins filled with raiders, its assembly lines silent, yet still filled with unfinished vehicles. These locations remind players that the corporations of pre-war America were not only symbols of prosperity, but also contributors to the hubris that led to nuclear annihilation. Fallout's satire of corporate greed resonates throughout these ruins, turning them into cautionary tales as much as combat zones. Hidden beneath this landscape are small moments of absurdity. A skeleton slumped over a typewriter might still clutch an unfinished memo, while mannequins are posed in bizarre tableaus that hint at either dark humor or madness. Some players interpret these as jokes left by developers, while others see them as haunting remnants of a society that tried to hold on to normalcy even as destruction loomed. The ambiguity allows players to fill in the gaps, making the world feel collaborative between designer and explorer. As exploration continues, the recurring theme of survival through adaptation becomes clear. Settlers repurpose old diners into trading posts, raiders convert ruined factories into fortresses, and scavengers turn piles of scrap into weapons. This constant process of transformation reflects humanity's resilience, even in the face of overwhelming catastrophe. Yet the brutality of some groups reminds players that adaptation can take many forms, not all of them noble. The tension between hope and cruelty ensures that the wasteland never feels predictable, always balancing despair with flashes of ingenuity. The artistry of the region lies in these contrasts. A neon-lit bar in Goodneighbor might sit only a short walk away from a collapsed school filled with feral ghouls. A thriving marketplace in Diamond City is shadowed by paranoia about synth infiltration. A sunny settlement farm may rest beside a raider outpost drenched in blood. These juxtapositions embody the series' tonal complexity, ensuring that the world is never just one thing. It is humorous, horrifying, tragic, and hopeful all at once. The ruins scattered throughout the region hold layers of history, with each collapsed building whispering its own story. Cambridge stands as one of the most detailed zones, a former college town now divided between ghouls, raiders, and remnants of the pre-war world. The ruins of Cambridge Polymer Labs, for instance, offer a fascinating glimpse into the experiments of old-world corporations. Inside, scientists were on the verge of developing advanced materials that could have changed industry forever. Yet, like so many projects, their ambition was cut short by nuclear fire, leaving behind malfunctioning robots and eerie laboratories frozen in time. Walking its halls, players encounter notes, terminals, and broken equipment, each piece hinting at both promise and tragedy. Other academic ruins, like the campuses of the old Technical Institute, serve as reminders of the intellectual heart that once beat in Massachusetts. Once bustling with students and researchers, these halls now echo only with the groans of feral ghouls, or the mechanical voices of security bots still dutifully patrolling centuries later. The irony of these institutions, enduring only as haunted shells, underscores Fallout's grim satire, where knowledge and innovation cannot shield humanity from its self-destructive impulses. Boston's landmarks add further richness. The towering ruins of the Massachusetts State House stand as a reminder of democracy that once governed the region. Its golden dome, tarnished and fractured, still glimmers faintly under sunlight, as if stubbornly clinging to its former majesty. Exploring its chambers reveals artifacts of politics long gone now overrun by raiders and scavengers. Nearby, Bunker Hill becomes another symbol, transformed into a hub of trade where caravans gather under the watchful eye of its iconic obelisk. These landmarks, familiar to those who know real-world Boston, deepen immersion by grounding Fallout's fiction in recognizable history. The harbor region holds its own secrets. The waterfront, once lively with shipping and commerce, is now littered with wrecked boats and rotting docks. A stroll along its piers reveals fragments of maritime culture, from half-submerged warehouses to fishing boats rusting in the water. At the far edge lies the USS Constitution, one of the most whimsical Easter eggs in the series. Crew members, eccentric robots convinced they are still naval officers, struggle to navigate the post-nuclear seas. Their quest to relaunch the ship captures Fallout's trademark blend of absurd humor and nostalgic melancholy, as ancient ideals of honor and patriotism persist in mechanical minds long after humanity has faltered. The Greenbrier area highlights the contrast between privilege and ruin. Once a luxurious estate for the wealthy, its ruined halls still carry echoes of opulence, with grand staircases, chandeliers, and gardens now choked with weeds. This location serves as a commentary on the futility of wealth in the face of apocalypse. No matter how lavish the home, nuclear fire reduced it to another husk, indistinguishable from the humblest shack. Fallout often uses such contrasts to satirize social inequality, showing how even the most powerful could not escape the devastation they helped create. Meanwhile, the darker corners of the world reveal experiments gone awry. Vault 95, for example, housed individuals struggling with addiction, only to subject them to cruel tests designed by Vault Tech. Hidden stashes of chems and manipulative overseers ensured that residents could never truly overcome their struggles. This vault, like so many others, exemplifies the cruelty of those experiments, cloaked in promises of safety, but ultimately serving as laboratories for suffering. Each vault reveals a different angle on human psychology, and together they form one of Fallout's most haunting threads. Another disturbing example is Vault 75, buried beneath Malden Middle School. Here, unsuspecting children were separated from their parents and subjected to brutal experiments intended to engineer a stronger human race. Generations of children grew up as test subjects, never knowing freedom or the outside world. The juxtaposition of a familiar school environment with horrific experiments makes Vault 75 one of the most chilling vaults in the series. Its very design reinforces the betrayal of trust, turning a place of education into a chamber of torment. The ruins of Quincy Quarry highlight the industrial past of the region. Once a site of heavy labor, it has since become overrun with raiders who use its jagged cliffs and deep pits as a defensive stronghold. Evidence of old mining operations lingers, from rusted cranes to half-collapsed tunnels. The quarry is not just a combat zone, but also a stage for storytelling, showing how even ordinary industries were transformed into battlegrounds by the apocalypse. Throughout the wasteland, environmental storytelling continues to shine. A half-collapsed diner may contain a skeleton still clutching a coffee cup, as if frozen in their final morning routine. An old subway station might shelter a family's makeshift camp, long abandoned, yet still filled with toys and notes. These moments reward attentive exploration, allowing players to piece together tragedies without ever hearing a word spoken. Fallout excels at crafting these silent stories, where a single tableau can convey despair, resilience, or even humor more effectively than dialogue. The supernatural side of the wasteland emerges through myths and local legends. Tales of the Dunwich Borer's Quarry evoke eerie connections to cosmic horror, with cult-like worship and unsettling hallucinations tied to ancient artifacts. Exploring these caverns, players witness visions of ritual sacrifices and madness, leaving them to wonder whether something truly otherworldly lingers in the shadows. Fallout rarely commits fully to the supernatural, but it often flirts with it, leaving mysteries open-ended in a way that adds depth to its world. Another such mystery lies in the glowing sea, a desolate expanse of irradiated land created by a direct nuclear strike. This region is unlike any other, drenched in constant radiation and shrouded in green fog. Crumbling ruins jut out of the toxic ground, while deathclaws, rad scorpions, and feral ghouls prowl the wastes. The glowing sea represents the purest form of Fallout's devastation, a place where survival feels almost impossible. Yet even here, life persists, with small communities of zealots, like the children of Adam, treating the radiation as sacred. The glowing sea serves as both a warning of nuclear horror and a testament to human adaptability, however twisted. The children of Adam, in particular, highlight how ideology adapts in extreme environments. To them, radiation is not a curse, but a blessing, a divine gift from the Great Divide. They worship the glow, seeing it as proof of cosmic rebirth. Their settlements are marked by glowing shrines, fanatical sermons, and the dangerous willingness to embrace radiation as Holy Communion. While unsettling, they add a spiritual dimension to Fallout's world, reflecting how people reinterpret catastrophe through belief and ritual. This sense of mysticism blends with the science fiction core of Fallout. Advanced technologies, scattered throughout the ruins, often blur the line between science and magic in the eyes of survivors. A laser rifle scavenged from a military bunker might seem like sorcery to a farmer barely scraping by. Power armor suits, towering and unstoppable, inspire both awe and fear. Synths raise deeper questions about identity, free will, and the soul itself. Are they machines, or are they humans in all but origin? Fallout thrives in these questions, refusing to provide easy answers, and instead encouraging reflection. Even nature reflects this duality. Irradiated rivers glow faintly at night, casting eerie light across ruined bridges. Forests reclaim suburbs, with trees sprouting through living rooms and roots cracking old highways. Animals mutate into terrifying predators, yet crops still grow with careful tending. Fallout never presents the post-nuclear world as entirely dead. Rather, it shows how life adapts in unexpected forms. For every deathclaw stalking the wastes, there are crops sprouting in reclaimed soil, reminding players that hope persists even in ruin. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of exploration is how it continually surprises. A burned-out house may hide a stash of pre-war money under its floorboards. A skeleton may be posed humorously in a bathtub with sunglasses, hinting at dark humor even in death. A hidden holotape may reveal a final message from someone long gone, their voice preserved against the silence of centuries. Each discovery makes the wasteland feel alive, not as a static game world, but as a layered environment shaped by countless unseen stories. The brilliance of this setting lies in its contradictions. It is simultaneously horrifying and humorous, tragic and absurd, desolate and alive. Exploring it is not merely about completing quests or gathering loot, but about immersing oneself in a world where every ruin, every skeleton, every note adds to the larger tapestry of survival. In this way, The wasteland becomes more than a backdrop. It becomes a character in its own right, constantly challenging, surprising, and rewarding those who dare to wander its broken streets. One of the remarkable things about Fallout 4's setting is how deeply it rewards close observation. A player may pass through the same location several times, only to notice something new on a later visit. The sheer density of detail creates a world that feels inexhaustible, where secrets linger in every ruined corridor or abandoned farmhouse. These discoveries are not always tied to loot or combat. Often, they are small narrative touches that add depth and texture to the world. Consider the forgotten homes scattered across the wasteland. In one, a skeleton is found slumped at a dinner table, cutlery still in hand, a silent witness to a meal interrupted by nuclear fire. In another, a child's room is perfectly preserved, with toys scattered across the floor and a diary tucked under the bed. Notes from the child speak of ordinary concerns like homework, friends, and playground games, making the abrupt end all the more tragic. These moments of intimacy give the apocalypse emotional weight, grounding the larger conflict in the personal lives of those lost. The schools throughout the ruins provide similarly haunting glimpses into the past. Classrooms remain filled with desks and chalkboards, often decorated with cheerful posters about safety drills. In one classroom, skeletons of children and a teacher lie side by side, suggesting that the bombs fell during a lesson. The juxtaposition of bright educational decorations with death and decay is chilling, driving home the point that the apocalypse disrupted lives at their most innocent and routine. Fallout thrives on such juxtapositions, where horror is heightened by traces of normalcy. Factories also play a central role in this narrative landscape. The Corvega assembly plant, the Saugus Ironworks, and the Mass Fusion building all highlight different aspects of pre-war industry. Each of these corporations pursued profit and technological advancement without much concern for safety or ethics, foreshadowing the very arrogance that led to nuclear disaster. Inside, players find terminals filled with memos about labor disputes, shortcuts in safety, and ambitious projects that would never be completed. These echoes of industrial greed transform otherwise ordinary combat zones into satirical critiques of unchecked capitalism. The Saugus Ironworks, in particular, leaves a strong impression. It is home to the Forged, a raider group obsessed with fire and brutality. Their leader enforces a twisted philosophy that glorifies heat and flame as symbols of strength. Exploring the ironworks reveals both their brutality and their absurdity, with notes and dialogue showcasing how ideology can warp even the most basic instincts of survival. The location is simultaneously horrifying and darkly comedic, reinforcing Fallout's signature blend of tones. Another powerful location is the glowing sea, ground zero for one of the bombs that destroyed America. Unlike other parts of the map, it is a wasteland within a wasteland, a place where constant radiation storms blanket the land in green haze. Its barren, scorched terrain feels alien compared to the more urban ruins closer to Boston. Here, the player encounters remnants of military installations, strange cultists who worship radiation, and mutated creatures that thrive in the toxic environment. The glowing sea embodies the apocalypse in its rawest form, showing the devastation of nuclear war without the distractions of city life. Within the glowing sea lives Virgil, a former Institute scientist who experimented on himself to survive in the harsh conditions. His story is one of desperation, guilt, and fragile hope as he seeks a cure for his self-induced mutation. Meeting him underscores Fallout's recurring theme of humanity clinging to survival through both ingenuity and folly. His lonely lab, hidden in the most dangerous place imaginable, is a testament to the lengths individuals will go to preserve themselves and their work. The Institute itself contrasts sharply with the chaos above. Its pristine white halls, filled with advanced technology and serene music, feel almost surreal after hours spent trudging through rubble and ash. The Institute represents humanity's capacity for rebuilding, but it also embodies arrogance and moral compromise. They create artificial humans without concern for the fear it causes, abduct people to replace them with synths, and manipulate the world from the shadows. For players, the Institute raises difficult questions about whether progress without transparency or empathy is truly progress at all. The Brotherhood of Steel provides a counterpoint, presenting themselves as guardians of technology and humanity. Their arrival in a massive airship inspires awe, and their ranks are filled with disciplined soldiers in power armor. Yet their rigid ideology and hostility towards synths make them divisive. For some, they are a stabilizing force, bringing order to chaos. For others, they are tyrants cloaked in righteousness, willing to destroy anything that does not conform to their vision of purity. Their presence in Boston adds weight to the story, forcing players to choose between competing visions of the future. Meanwhile, the railroad hides in the shadows, working tirelessly to free synths from the Institute's control. Their underground headquarters, marked with coded lanterns and secret tunnels, feels like a true resistance movement. They pose difficult questions about identity and freedom, arguing that synths should be treated as equals to humans. Their mission is noble, but it also risks destabilizing the already fragile balance of power in the wasteland. The railroad highlights Fallout's willingness to engage with moral ambiguity, refusing to present clear heroes or villains. These competing factions are woven into the everyday lives of settlers. Farmers till irradiated soil, traders move between towns, and scavengers comb ruins for scrap. Each settlement reflects different philosophies of survival. Sanctuary Hills represents rebuilding from personal loss, while Diamond City thrives on commerce and suspicion. Goodneighbor embraces freedom, while Quincy lies in ruins as a reminder of failure. Together, these communities paint a portrait of a society struggling to redefine itself after catastrophe. The smaller details scattered across the wasteland reinforce this struggle. A skeleton clutching a teddy bear in a collapsed house, a holotape recording of a soldier saying goodbye to his family, a note from a scavenger who never returned from their expedition. These fragments ensure that exploration never feels empty. Even without quest markers or rewards, the world tells stories through objects, environments, and silence. Fallout's genius lies in turning every corner into a narrative opportunity. Environmental humor also lightens the weight of tragedy. Players might find a skeleton on a toilet with a magazine in hand, or mannequins arranged in bizarre poses that suggest either developer jokes or the madness of survivors. A fridge might contain a skeleton sealed inside, a parody of pop culture myths about nuclear survival. These moments inject levity into the ruins, preventing the experience from becoming overwhelmingly grim. Fallout thrives on this tonal balance, where horror and comedy exist side by side. The variety of random encounters adds further unpredictability. A wandering merchant with a pet Brahmin may appear on a lonely road, offering supplies and stories. A band of mercenaries might be locked in battle with super mutants, allowing players to watch or intervene. Sometimes, bizarre encounters break the fourth wall, such as mysterious strangers or unlikely coincidences that feel almost supernatural. These moments keep exploration fresh, ensuring that even routine travel can produce surprises. Music ties the world together, creating atmosphere at every step. From the nervous chatter of Travis on Diamond City Radio to the solemn tones of classical broadcasts, sound adds richness to the wasteland. Songs from the mid-20th century evoke nostalgia while contrasting sharply with the ruined world around them. Listening to cheerful lyrics about love and happiness while walking through shattered neighborhoods underscores Fallout's satirical tone. Music becomes both a comfort and a cruel reminder of what was lost. Ultimately, the genius of this world lies in its contradictions. It is simultaneously bleak and hopeful, tragic and funny, terrifying and absurd. Exploring it is not just about quests or loot, but about immersing oneself in a world alive with echoes of the past and hints of possible futures. Every skeleton, every terminal entry, every ruined landmark contributes to a larger story about survival, resilience, and the human condition. By weaving together small details, grand storylines, and satirical critiques, Fallout 4 created a world that feels endlessly rewarding to explore. Even after the main story ends, the wasteland continues to whisper its secrets to those who listen closely. The ruins of Boston are not simply a backdrop for adventure. They are a stage where tragedy and comedy dance together, creating one of the most memorable post-apocalyptic worlds in gaming history.